Welcome to Heroes of Improv. I'm Louise Ritchie, associate producer of Duluth, the improvised soap opera. And this is my co-cast member and associate producer, Teresa.
Yes, my name is Teresa Bueno, and as Louise said, I'm also an associate producer of Duluth.
And today we have as our guest David Razowsky, who needs no introduction, but I will still give him an introduction. He is a renowned improviser and teacher. He has been the artistic director of Second City, LA, and has also appeared in soap operas, including The Young and the Restless, among the many other things that he has done. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Louise. Hi, Teresa.
Hello, Dave.
Oh, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
We're so happy that you are.
Me too.
And I want
Me,
to thank you for
wait, I
all.
just want to say you got me put on a dress shirt and a dress shirt,
Whoa.
and I don't often wear my rings, so
And
this is a special
pants,
occasion.
pants, not shorts.
And I got pants. I'm wearing
Yes,
pants.
everybody who knows Dave knows
Oh,
his short
man.
for
Yeah,
Wow.
I got pants. Yeah, I'm wearing pants. I'm wearing pants.
First of all, I want to thank you for your excitement about Duluth. I mean, every week when I have class with you, you're very excited about it,
Very
and I
excited.
appreciate that. And I want to say, could you give us a definition of dramatic improv? Because we haven't been able to find firm definitions of dramatic improv. In fact, we've been able to find very few definitions or even information
Yeah,
about
it's really
dramatic
interesting
improv.
because when uh, the first dramatic improv festival a couple of years ago, I was part of it, and I was thinking, dramatic improv, what is that? Um, and then I watched a lot of the shows, and I was thinking, the definition of dramatic improv has become serious improv. And that's not what called. It's called dramatic improv. And dramatic improv, it's not a name that I would use for it, but certainly it helps people understand if it's defined. I would imagine that I got to go back. I'm going to step back. When I was doing improvisation, when I first started doing improvisation in I don't know, 81, 82. There weren't many improv schools, and the improv schools that were around. Dudley Riggs was around up in the Twin Cities. You had Second City. You had Players Workshop of the Second City, and maybe you had one or two more, uh, and that's all. And the people that were teaching improvisation at those places weren't improvisers, they were actors. They were actors and directors who were teaching improvisation. So when you have actors and directors teaching improvisation, the people that were the students of those well, first off, all the people that were doing improv at that time were actors, or people who were just getting into improvisation. So the people that were what you were learning from teachers, and you were learning from directors of theater. And because you were learning from teachers and directors of theater, the foundation of the work was theater. It was really like looking at characters, looking at scenes, looking at connections, looking at blocking, the way that we moved around the
Mm.
stage. And then what ended up happening was the popularity of improvisation. I've been throughout this whole thing. I was part of it all, and I watched it happen. And what ended up happening was there weren't the people that were then teaching improvisation later on weren't actors. They were improvisers. They were improvisers that were taught by improvisers. And when you have improvisers being taught by improvisers, you're missing a certain
Mm.
element. And what you're missing from
Mm-hmm.
that element is you're missing the theatrical point of that element. So
Mm-hmm.
going back to the idea of blocking, and I don't mean blocking like blocking when we talk about improvisation. I mean blocking when you talk about the elements of theater, where you move on the stage and how you express your voice, and I mean how you use your voice, and how you use objects, and how you use the space and entrances and exits. All those things that are such a major part of a play weren't being taught in improvisation. So what was being taught was, I'm going to be careful here, the lowest common denominator. Um, the lowest common denominator. Lowest common denominator. What we're often being taught was the lowest common denominator being jokes, how to craft a joke, how to keep an audience interested in what you're doing, how important the audience was, And I think that when you're talking about theater, this is what I'm feeling. Um, uh, I'm fuck the audience. All that matters in improvisation, and you can beep that out if you want, all that matters in improvisation is what my partner and I are doing on stage. And if you're interested, if one actor is interested in what another actor is doing, the work is going to become interesting. And what ended up happening also was some people felt like, how do you make sure that the audience knows that you're improvising? And my thought was, forget about it. They're coming to an improv show at an improv theater, and it's told at improvisers. And I don't need to prove to you that I'm improvising by making sure that you know that we're using your suggestion. So what ended up happening was, and because I knew you were going to ask this question, and very often to define what theatrical improvisation is to define what it is to determine what it is not.
It's not.
And what it is not is, it's not a dog and pony show. It's not designed to it's not a dog and pony show, which is like, we're going to do something for you, and you told us that we're going to do this, and we're going to make sure. What it is it's an emotional connection between the actors on stage. It's an understanding of how theater works. It's an understanding that a scene, when we're doing a scene, all that we're dealing with is that one scene. And we're dealing with an interaction with each other. We're dealing with a dynamics. What are the dynamics between? We're interested in what's your character's point of view, recognizing what a point of view is, holding on to what a point of view is, recognizing when your point of view has changed. And for me, there's more of a sense of, if you're looking for dramatic improvisation, I don't even want to call it, I still want to call it improvisation, but it's really more closely aligned with theater. And when I was doing the...
May I interrupt and just ask you? I'd like for you to say more about that. Is that because you did say earlier you wouldn't call it a dramatic improv? So what would you call it, and why would you not call it dramatic improv?
Because when you call it dramatic improv, I think that there's an overriding feeling that you have to be serious. And when I watch the shows at the Dramatic Improv Festival, and maybe it's changed, because my challenge with that was there wasn't, and maybe there wasn't, I didn't see it. There wasn't a mission statement, and within a mission statement, and I don't mean to slam that fest, because I really enjoyed doing it. What's the mission statement? And if you don't define what dramatic improv is, then you're not getting the people to the show. You're not getting the people to that connection. You're not connecting to people because it isn't defined. And what I saw people being serious, and it's not serious. There are serious parts to it, but there's also dramatic parts to it. And what's a dramatic part? So I don't know what to call it, because I just call it theater. And that's what I call it. I call it theater. And it's theater. It's unscripted theater. There.
Okay,
How about
unscripted.
that? It's
There you go.
unscripted theater.
Great name for it, yeah.
Because, as I've said before, all improv is acting. All improv is acting. And what's ended up happening is so many improvisers don't think themselves as actors. And if you don't think of yourself as actors, then how can you get up on a stage and show me something that's acting? What is it that you're doing?
I've noticed, because I take a lot of classes, and I've noticed that a lot of people, when they're doing dramatic improv, they don't realize that they're expected to feel emotions and to react to their partner, or they think that if they do feel emotions, that something is wrong with them. They think they're supposed to sort of be pasting something on that looks like an emotion, but there's no real feeling there because there's no real connection.
Absolutely. And who's responsible? And my feeling, Louise, is who's responsible for that? This is what I think. Who's responsible for that? The teachers, the directors, the producers are responsible for that. They're responsible to make sure that the actors that are on stage understand that theater is an emotional based art form. And if you aren't connected, and all the great actors the actors that you love watching have vulnerability and know when to surrender and know when to connect and know when to deep dive. And we're not understanding the difference between, because we're making it up on the spot. Very often people are afraid that the audience is going to think that whatever it is that you say on stage, that's what you feel. If your character's named Denise, but you're Louise playing Denise, very often people will go, oh my God, I don't want people to think that Louise feels this way just because Denise feels this way. So what we have to do is we have to differentiate the actor from the character and tell us this. The character is, the actor is the creator, and the actor is the creator, and the character is their creation. And what we have to make sure is that when you and I are in a scene together, this is what we're doing. We're writing a scene in real time. We're writing it. And what we have to do is admit that we're writing it. We're just not writing it down.
We're also directing, aren't we?
That's exactly it. I love that, Teresa. And I tell people that we're writers, we're directors, we're producers. And this is what we also are. We're also the audience watching what it is that we're doing. So and this shit is hard. To do it well is hard, and it takes discipline. And I know having worked with both of you, you have that discipline. You have that understanding. And there's been times where both of you who have been, actors working with me, I know you're frustrated.
Oh,
Because you're frustrated with my work. Whether you were frustrated with my work, like what I'm asking you. But what I'm asking you to do is to be more of what it is that you are. And my intention is not to control you. My intention is to go, when you're up on that stage, connect with your partner. Why? So you don't have to work so hard. Why? Because the two of you are creating this thing together. Why? Because I want this to be, and this is a word that we need to use a lot. I want what you do to be authentic. I want you to look like human beings being human. And how do we do that? We understand what it means to be human, to have foibles, to be vulnerable. And this is everything about a soap opera. To have foibles, to be vulnerable, to have surprises, to make sure to say that which you would not historically say, to act in a way which you would not historically act, to make accusations that can be wrong, and to make accusations that can be wrong, and to make choices that you wouldn't historically make, because who the hell cares? It's not you up there. It's a character.
And people don't want to see a perfect human being up there. They want to see a flawed human being that's vulnerable. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Robots are perfect. Humans humans have mistakes. We fuck up. We smell. We curse. We do all those things. So I need for you to recognize, make mistakes. Say something you didn't mean to say. Call your partner on it. Why? Because that's what's human.
Yeah.
And I think Brian Lohman who's one of the improv theater people, great actor,
oh
great
yes,
director.
yes.
I think Brian says we're human and we just can't help it.
Yeah.
And how beautiful is that? And he's so good. And all those people that you're working with are so good. They're really, really great. And the improvisers that I love watching are great actors.
I'm curious about, because I know you've helped me with my character. For instance, my character, Elizabeth A. Grayson the third. You out of the blue said, I've never heard of women who have junior or the third after
That's
their
true.
name. You just dropped that in. And you just mentioned that in passing when I was taking a class with you. And then I started thinking about it. I added it to her name. And that gave me a whole character. I mean, I have her coming from generations of women who deliberately were single parents, strong women who murdered to get what they wanted. But they're very proud of being strong, independent women. And that just came from adding the third after my name. What are your other ideas for how people who are doing unscripted improv, how they can work with their characters and work with names and things like that?
Look around you. Look around you. Look in your past. Look around you. Look in your past. Look at the people that you know that have struggled in order to get to be where it is that they are, and see the strength within them. Recognize that when you're doing something in your life, when you're doing something in your life where you go, God, I wish I never did that. Look back on that. Go, I am so glad that I did that. I don't know if that makes any sense. The
Well,
idea that,
yeah, it makes sense to
yeah,
me. I mean, my
yeah.
mistakes in life are the things I most learn from.
Well, in my TED talk, I can say that. In my
Yes,
TED
please
talk,
do.
in
Yes,
my TED
Where
talk
can we see your TED Talk,
on
Dave?
you on the YouTubes.
Okay.
But
Buddhist as I remember it. It has a lot of Buddhism, be here, be
it
present.
does. It does, but a major part of that is a story that I have where I'm watching a play, and it's a play at a wonderful Chicago theater, and the beginning of the play, and I screamed something out. I mean, 3,000 people in the audience, and I screamed something out, and what that experience taught me, what me having done that taught me, and I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I feel like we have to live these. Why do we watch a soap opera? All right, why do we watch a soap opera? We watch a soap opera to see how our life isn't as crappy as somebody else's. One, two. We watch a soap opera so that we can see somebody who has guts. We can see somebody who says things that we wouldn't say. We can see,
Amen.
so people who are, and not just say something that somebody wouldn't say, but to respond to something that someone would say to somebody in a way that you wouldn't respond because you're afraid, or because you're embarrassed, or because whatever. So one of the things that I want people to say is, I want people to do in these shows, and I'm not directing, but one of the things is, say what it is that you've never say. Get yourself in trouble. Get yourself in trouble.
Hmm.
Don't solve the problem. Be the problem. Be the problem, and it's a joke. Be the problem you want to see in others. It's Mahatma Gandhi. So it's that feeling of like get in trouble, and recognize that when we're doing these sort of things, it's an opportunity for you to get out of this skin suit that we put on every day, and for you to be somebody else, and for you to if you're a high status person in real life, be a low status person. If you're a low status in real life, be a high status person. Play with that. Recognize what status is. Recognize when you are in a corner, and what is it, how is it that you get out of it. See what happens when you're honest. See, and don't be afraid, because you're not responsible for what your partner is saying. You're responsible for you to express what it is that you're feeling in the moment that you feel it, and whatever they're going to respond to, however they're going to respond to, groovy, great. All that I know is I got my character's truth out.
Well, you started in theater, right? I mean, you didn't go, actually, you have a formal training in theater?
I don't have
Or,
formal training. I mean, I was lucky in that that my formal training was not with necessarily with teachers, but doing plays. So I've been doing. I'll be 62 in a couple of weeks, and I've been doing. I've been involved in theater since I was 10. So I've been doing this for 52 years. Many years being on the road, and but yeah. So my experience has always been watching great directors direct people, and watching great actors take those directions, and seeing actors struggle, seeing professional actors struggle. And one of the things that I remember doing, when I was doing The Young and the Restless, I think I had 3 episodes of The Young and the Restless, was, first off, they could not have been nicer. It was just like, it's actually, I live a block away from the studio, CBS television. So they could not have been nicer. Um, when I came in, the person that I was working with had been on the show for like 30 years. And I came in, and I came in, I went to my dressing room, I sat in my dressing room, and there was a knock on my door, and it was the person that I was doing the scene with. And he goes, "How are you doing? What's going on? What do you need from me?" And I'm
uh,
like, "I don't know. I need to run lines." He goes, "Then let's run lines. Let's run lines." And I said, "Yeah, because I'm afraid that I'm gonna mess up. And I know that you all do it on clockwork. And it's like, if you mess up, this is what we do. We do another take." I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, okay." And then I get on set, and I watch him screw up his lines. So one of the things about being an actor in acting school is you're not dealing with professionals, you're dealing with other actors. So you don't understand what it's like on a set or on the stage in rehearsal, the frustration that professionals go through. And what's really important is to know that part of the process is that struggle. Part of the process is fucking up. Part of the process is not getting your lines down and playing with that, because that's all part of it. And what ends up happening is the more that you recognize that professionals are doing it, you're going, oh, I get permission to fumfer. And that's the professional training that I got. You know, to be on set, to watch directors and to watch actors who were unprepared get reamed out by a director. And I remember I was doing a commercial with John Landis, just the director John Landis, and I was always told he was just a nasty person. And I'm like, got to get my lines down, got to make sure I hit my marks. And there was a guy who did not have his lines down, who was being unprofessional, and I was thinking, dude, it's just a matter of time. And what ended up happening was he said one thing too much, and it was like, get him off.
Whoa.
And like, huh? That's one thing I learned. I learned that, but I didn't learn it. I learned it from him doing it, not from me doing it.
So how did, because I know you've worked with Impro LA, you've done genre type of improv like we're doing. How did your soap opera experience on TV translate to your work as an improviser, improvising a genre?
Well, one of the things that I think was great about improv theater and your director is improv theater looks at genre work the way that, because they're a professional theater, looks at genre work like we talked about what the genre was, and we went in depth, and we spent a lot of time doing research, and creating these characters and interacting in different ways, and this is all stuff that we do when we're improvising. You know, if you're a great improviser, you just want to learn as much as you can about everything that you can do. So now we have a genre that I'm able to study, and I'm watching film noir movies in a different way, because I'm watching it like how do these characters interact, and I'm watching I'm watching soap operas, you know, and I mentioned it to Louise. One of the things that, you know, in a conversation that I had with the guy that I was in the soap opera with, and he goes, I don't know, I'm sure that you heard about this. He said to me, at the end of every scene, you know, at the end of every scene, you'll say the line, and then the camera's going to hold on you for a bit. And there are two things that you want to think about, that you want to have a look on your face, so that they're going to hold on to you. One is whatever somebody says, the reaction is that you're smelling something bad. And another is you're doing long math. You're doing big long division in your head. So, Teresa, give me a line. Say something to me, like like what your character would say.
Don't you ever come to my home again.
That's bad smell. And Louise, to give me one.
I am going to completely ruin your reputation in Duluth.
That's me doing long division. So you have two choices: bad smell or long division. And it really helped. So I don't know if that answered your question. But we did a lot of research, and that's part of the fun, is putting in the time.
How,
I have
how,
another question. Excuse me, Louise.
okay, just one follow up. How did you develop your character for the genre work that you did? Besides doing the research and everything and playing with other characters, did you came up with your own name, background?
I think we came up. I think came up with our own name, and they helped direct us a little bit. I think Brian Lohman was directing that. Dan O'Connor was directing that, and and this is what I do when I'm doing cast scenes. When I'm involved in a cast scene, is I'll step back and I'll look at what other people have done, and I'll think to myself, what's missing? What character is missing? And when you do what character is missing, what ends up happening is you've created a place for yourself. It's not you coming and going, I have this idea. It's you coming in saying, how can I, and this is true of everything that we're doing, how can I best serve the rest of the cast? Because when you're an improviser, the best thing that you could do is, I mean, when you're stand-up, you don't give a damn about anybody else. But when you're doing improvisation, you're in service to everyone. And so if I'm coming in, it's like, how can I be of service to everyone here? And it might have started out with, how can I be of service to that one person? What can I do for that one person? And when you do for that one person, you're connected, and they need you, and you need them. And that's a major thing. Like, become something that's needed. Find a reason for people to need you. And I've been really, I'm looking for a word between blessed and lucky. And lucky just doesn't make it. So I've been blessed and lucky in that I've worked with so many hilarious people. And I used to be jealous, like, why, when I'm doing scenes with Carell, it's like, yeah, I'm in the scene with Carell and he's getting all the laughs or whatever it's going to be, or I'm in the scene with Colbert, or I'm in the scene with Amy Sedaris, I'm in the scene with Rachel Dratch or any of these people. And I'm thinking, I'm doing the scene and they're getting all the laughs. And then one day it hit me, they need me. They need me because I'm setting them up. I'm in service to them. And in vaudeville, the straight guy got paid more than the funny guy, because the straight guy didn't get it. The straight guy didn't get laughs. And so what ends up happening in that is it taught me how to be focused, how to learn how to be in service to someone, how to play how to play in dynamic to somebody's big character. If they're big, I'm small. If they're small, I'm big. Like how am I in service with somebody? And it's not about how can I get my laughs, and that goes back to dramatic improv, because the show that I did at the Dramatic Improv Fest was with Susan Messing and Joe Bill, two really great actors, two fantastic improvisers, and there were serious moments in that, but it wasn't like when I'm teaching a class, I can tell when a student comes in and says and wants to start a scene. It's like, I am going to be positive in this scene, and I'm going to make sure that this is a positive scene, and the scene falls flat. Why? Because the scene doesn't want to be positive. The scene wants to go where the scene wants to go. And as we keep doing this, we keep learning more. As I keep doing this, I keep learning more and more that this truth keeps coming up. What is it that my partner wants me to do? What is it that the scene what does the scene need right now? And if the scene needs a serious moment, then I'll take a serious moment.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. One of the things that we are finding out is that we're intentionally trying to drive up interest of the actual citizens of Duluth. And a lot of these people have never seen improv and certainly never seen anything like we're doing. Do you have any words of wisdom to how we, just speak to that, please.
When I was in the touring company, first off, I got so I was doing theater, and then I went to college, and I stopped doing theater for a few years, and I got a degree in photojournalism. And then when I went back to Chicago, I'm from Chicago, and I was in a city called DeKalb, Illinois. And when I came back to Chicago, the theater scene was crazy. It was just blowing up in a way. And also at that point, improv was just starting to get happening. And I auditioned for some plays, and I got cast in some plays, and plays were opening up in little theaters and cafes and streetcar barns. It's like abandoned streetcar barns. It's like crazy shit like that. And I got cast in a theater called Theater Company for Prisons. And it was non-comedic improvisation, mask work in prisons across the United States. And I lived on a 52-foot International Harvester, 1963 52-foot International Harvester school bus. And we went from prison to prison to prison to prison to prison. And when we weren't doing prisons, we were studying things like slack rope walking, juggling, but commedia dell'arte. And so Commedia dell'arte had stock, whether you know it or not, they had stock characters, and these stock characters would be in dynamic, and it was really kind of like a soap opera. These stock characters would be in dynamic, and what was really important is they would travel around the countryside, and what they would learn is they would learn who's the nasty landlord, where do you go to get drinks, where do you go to get laid, where do you go, where do you go to get food, where's the best place to steal food, like all these things, so that when you were doing these shows, you would drop these names in,
Yes, brilliant.
and the local references, and the local references. What started to happen is towns would go, they are doing a play for us, they're doing a show for, they know who we are, because you're going to want to watch a show where it's either the characters, you can relate to the characters in some way, and your local references are the greatest thing. And what I would do is I would do as much research about Duluth, find out as many things that you can about Duluth, and then just do a 1 minute improvised promo where you just mention, like
Great
my
idea.
name is Reginald Kranzer III, and I just came back from Manny's Delicatessen, where, by the way, they have a fantastic corned beef sandwich, but
Yes.
they're closed on Saturday. Like, what is wrong with those people? Like, have the local references, like
Yeah.
the Manny's, by the way, is a Manny's Delicatessens in Chicago, which does have an awesome corned beef sandwich. My sister says a
Are they
brisket
closed on
sandwich.
Saturdays? Are they closed on Saturday?
No, no, I don't think so. No, no, no,
Do you think that
no.
people would be interested if we made a reference to a special place in Duluth for you that you were telling us about?
Like the bus station
Yeah,
where
the bus
people go,
station.
the bus station where people go on their way to being tried in Thunder Bay, Ontario. I think the Greyhound station would be a really great place to go. Can you imagine what that's like now? I would
Yeah.
Google, everybody right now, Google Duluth Greyhound Station, 1978, and see what that looked like.
When
Yeah,
you
yeah.
were waiting for your trial after being busted.
I was busted for possession. In 77, 78 in the summer, I went with a bunch of people, a bunch of guys, few guys, and we went to we went from, so Duluth is like, here's the United States, here's Duluth right here, and here's Canada, and we'll do it this way, and they share this. Minnesota has what's called Boundary Waters Canoe Area, and that's in the United States. In Canada, it's called Quetico Provincial Park, and you rent canoes and you go on these amazing wilderness canoe trips. And one year we went, and we didn't have any pot, and so it's like, what are we doing without any pot? So you rowed up to this little island, and that was customs. And it was an old man. He's like, well, whatever you got, take whatever you take in, take out. So if you have a can, take it out. I'm like, great. And the next year we went, it's like, let's bring some pot. So I got a little film canister for the Acapulco Gold. It was this big. It was $45. It's like, what am I, made of money? And then we go up to we go up to this island thinking we're going to see the old man, and it wasn't the old man. It was a young guy, and he
Oh,
opened up our packs and he went searching, and he found the pot and he opened it up. He goes, "Whose is this?" And I went, "Can I take a minute here?" And I said, "This is for everybody. I'm willing to take the rap, but whatever happens, I don't want to be alone in this." And my friend Rick Neestet said, "I'll go." It's like, great. So we went camping, and we had to come back early, and we had to stay in Duluth to get the Greyhound bus, because Greyhound buses didn't run on Sundays or Saturdays there for our Monday trial. And we ended up hanging out in Duluth, and then hanging out in, we had no food and we had no money. And we went to trial in Thunder Bay, and we got a $50 fine, and it's like, be careful, and then don't come back here with those shenanigans. But that was my when I think of Duluth, I think about the Greyhound station. I'm sure that there's more of Duluth and the
I
Greyhound
really
station.
appreciate after that experience that you've been so supportive of Duluth, the soap opera.
That was it. It's sort of like, I spent maybe a half a day there, but it really had an effect on me.
Well, we're just about out of time. I want to
No,
They,
the
you
show's
have
about out of time. No, wait, Louise. The show is just about out of time. The three of us have a tremendous life ahead of us.
That's true. That's true. And we hope to see you again soon. But first, I want to thank you for coming. Thank Pete Mousseau, who is our producer and the creator of Duluth, who's been doing our tech. Thank everybody who watches this. And just one last thing, any one little piece of advice that you would like to give us that you haven't already? To give us or people who love dramatic improv?
Um, I'll give you two pieces of advice. Here's one. When you're stir frying potatoes, pop it in the microwave for a minute and a half, literally a minute and a half, and then the potatoes you won't have to overcook the potatoes, and that's a really good piece of advice. Two.
Thank you.
No, and then there's this. If you're a human being, being human, the laughs are going to come, and the laughs are going to come because you're honest. And the more honest that you can be, the more human you can be. And the more human you can be, the more authentic you can be. And the more authentic you can be, the more you realize that you don't have to work at all. You just have to unfold, unfurl, evolve what it is that you're feeling in that moment. And recognize that I need my partner to tell me who I am. And not to come in there going, I'm going to push this thing because I'm funny.
One other quick one. Yeah, thank you. And speaking of advice, I hear that you have a book in the making.
I have a book in the making, and if anybody ever tells you they enjoyed writing their book, they didn't write their book. Um, uh, uh, yes, it's called. And I've worked on it for a really, really long time. And Teresa and I have a dear friend, Vera Cole, who's the editor on that book. And we've been working on it for a really long time. The pandemic has given me pause, and I've been working so hard in the pandemic. I've been working so much teaching and coaching that I put it off since September. And I'm coming back to it in a couple of weeks. I'm going to spend 2 weeks on it. It's called the Subversive's Guide to Improvisation. And anybody who's ever taken a class with me probably understands what that means. So I'm really excited about that. And in my classes, I've been popping up little, here's a chapter that we can read, and here's an exercise that we can do. And Teresa, you've done a lot of those exercises.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm excited about that book. But when you're writing a book, when you have an idea to write a book, it's sort of like waking up. You wake up and you're pregnant, and you don't know who inseminated you, so you don't know if the baby's coming in an elephant amount of time, or if the baby's coming in a fruit fly, a gerbil, a fruit fly amount of time. And by the time you recognize that you're pregnant, you can't get an abortion because it's all in you, and you're just going, the best thing that I could do here is just to make sure that the baby is healthy, that it has a good name, that it's going to come out in a time, the family's going to be around it and be able to nurture it. But in the meantime, it's in the back of my mind every day, and every day I'm writing, even though I might not be typing. But every day I'm writing. So I'm excited about it. And if anybody's really interested in it, if anybody's interested in anything that I'm doing, I really recommend you go to my website and go to contacts and just send me a message, and then I'll put you on my mailing list. What else can I tell you about that? That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Well, you also have a wonderful podcast, ADD. That's also wonderful.
ADD Comedy with Dave Razowsky.
And I hope you'll be watching Duluth when we premiere on YouTube in May.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, David. You've been a great guest.
Thank you, Dave.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.